Well, good evening to you, everyone. How are you? It's good to see you, and it's good to be seen by you. Welcome, everybody, to the show. I, of course, am the one and only Bill Sylvie, aka the Dungeon Delver, coming to you live, loud and clear from a swamp somewhere in sunny Central Florida. Hello, how are you, everybody? Um, I'm glad you're all here. We have got a show for you guys tonight. We've got a guest tonight, so you kids better behave. Um, and I want to thank that guest for being here tonight. We'll be talking to him soon. Of course, you guys have probably already read the thumbnail and everything. You know who it is. So yes, GREG GILLESPIE will be coming out in just a few minutes, and we're going to talk to him about all kinds of cool stuff. But do me a favor, if you would, if you haven't done so already, if you just from the bottom of my heart, I ask you if you could please click the subscribe button, click the bell icon for notifications. It would be oh so helpful to the show, to my better mental health, to all that sort of thing. But no, I really appreciate that, guys. And of course, I remind you that tonight's show is brought to you by the Delver's Dungeon, which may seem like a bit of a redundancy, a bit of a tautology, but no, because down below, we actually have merch for sale. That's right. You can check out our merch. Beautiful design by the one and only Tracy Lesh. Get it on a hoodie, get it on a mouse mat, get it on a pint glass. It is just really awesome, and I highly recommend it. And of course, our excellent character record organizational manager software, Crom, which, guys, a new version just went out today, and a little tweak, a little bug fix is going out tonight after the show. So if you've got a need to create, manage, update, level, reduce in level, change the stats, dual class, check for psionics, buy and sell equipment, and if all that is on your radar for what you need for your first edition AD&D characters, hey Dagger, man, thank you so much. It has been a minute. Thank you. God bless you. That is fantastic. I will put that up on the screen. That is the really, dude, that but from the bottom of my heart, I really appreciate the super. I really do. So if Crom suits your needs, if that sounds like something you need on your computer, it can be yours for just the low price of $25 US dues. And you can hit me up, bsylvia@gmail.com, and let me get you in a brand new copy of Crom. So there we go. Thank you very much, Dagger, for that. You're helping keep the lights on around here, brother. I do appreciate it. But anyway, so with that said, we are honored tonight to have a guest. Is back in December. I love getting gifts. I absolutely adore it. Back in December, tonight's guest sent me, and I've shown this off, and we kind of talked about it a little bit, these two excellent hardback RPG books, Dragonslayer and the Mega Dungeon Monster Manual here. Very old school, these. We kind of leafed through these a little bit on the channel. Just gorgeous books with fantastic art. And a lot of this art, I should point out, I mean, look, I'm a sucker for good art, okay? I do love me some classic TTRPG art, and I will tell you straight up that some of the art in this is done by none other than Diesel LaForce and the artist Darlene themselves. So that was so cool to see in there. But you know what? I probably do better than just sitting here and waving the books around and babbling about it. Let's go ahead and bring on the guy who made Dragonslayer responsible, and he can tell us all about it here. So let me don my headphones and let me please bring on the architect of Dragonslayer, the man himself. Everybody, please put your hands together for Mr. Greg Gillespie. Greg, good evening.
Hello, and thank you for having me. I'm such a big fan of the show, and I enjoy watching your games and your DMing style, and it's a real pleasure to be here tonight. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, brother. Namaste. I really appreciate it. Thank you for being had. So yeah, first of all, thank you. Really, I mean, it was so cool to get these, and I'm sorry that we have kind of, our orbits have not come in resonance enough that we've been able to sit down and talk about this. But I'm glad it's finally happening. So, I just want to jump straight in. What, for the sake of our audience who might not know, now I know because I've already taken a look here. Tell us about Dragonslayer. Give us a little tale of the tape on Dragonslayer, because this, my friend, this is a meaty book here. This is a chunky RPG guy. So tell us about Dragonslayer, Greg.
Sure. Well, it was the codification of my home game, first and foremost.
Mm-hmm.
So what happened was when I first started thinking about publishing in RPGs, the game that was closest to what I was doing was Labyrinth Lord. But I was always, I guess, in D&D 0.75, insofar as it was never quite BX and it was never exactly AD&D. It was right in between, and that's how a lot of the people of our generation played, right? Because if you think about it, if you had a version of basic and then the AD&D monster manual came out and then the player's handbook and the DM guide that followed it, what you did is you just grafted some of those rules onto the engine of BX because that's what you had to work with. And so a lot of us kind of understood Dungeons and Dragons from that point of view. So that's kind of what I was doing. But then we started to experiment a wee bit here and there with the fighter. We wanted to speed combat a little bit. We wanted to do some other things. And then that just kind of became the way we played. And it's really a tribute to my players who were willing to put up with my ideas for experimentation over time. Then, of course, when we came to the whole OGL situation a couple of years ago, it just became clear that, I understand the point of view from players. Why do we need another D&D clone? But if you're thinking about it from a publisher standpoint, you want to be on solid ground moving forward, and you can't really trust anything that Wizards of the Coast is doing anymore. So you need to be on firm ground to publish in the future. So that became kind of the launching point. Now, another factor that comes into it, if we play a little bit of a thought experiment. So like, let's go back to, before AD&D was created. So Gygax wanted to kind of do his thing, and he wanted to ensure that he was keeping all his royalties. So that's the reason, one of the reasons why Advanced Dungeons and Dragons came forward in the manner that it did. Now, if we play a thought experiment and we say, what if Gygax and Arneson stayed together? What would D&D have looked like if they did? And in my opinion, I think it would look something like Dragonslayer. It wouldn't quite have a lot of the rules that some of us didn't enjoy about AD&D, but it would have had all the chrome. And I told one of my best friends today, if every time I say the word chrome, we have to drink. So here you go.
Well, there you go.
So if Gygax and Arneson stayed together, what would D&D have looked like? And it probably would have been a D&D 0.75 hybrid, not quite AD&D, not quite BX, and that's exactly where Dragonslayer falls. It provides all the respect and honor that should be attributed to the creators of the game, and it does so in a way that I think is clean, is efficient, and avoids splat books. So I'm one of the people that really hated the splat book version of second edition, and I'm quite sure some of your viewers out there feel the same way. You had to dig really hard to find nuggets in some of the splat books. So I just wanted a self-contained book. Here it is, and away we go. And the PDF is $10. So very feasible entry point for somebody that wants to take a look at it. And there's a lot of great art, as you pointed out. Some of the art is an homage to some of the stuff of the past. Others riff off stuff from the past to create something completely new. And it's really kind of it's a tribute to, it's my tip of the cap. Dungeons & Dragons, Gary Gygax and Dungeons & Dragons have given me something that I can never fully repay. It was an entry point into history. It was an entry point into the English language. It was an entry point into higher education. And for that, I'll be eternally grateful. And so if part of what I can do reflects positively on him and his legacy and his creation of this genre that we enjoy so much, then I've been successful.
Well, man, you know, I don't think I could have asked for a better 10,000 foot look than that right there. And, you know, to kind of circle back around and pick out some of the finer details, you know, we were talking about art, and I mean, you know, we can talk about love of the game and that sort of thing as much as we want, but I mean, come on, you know, who was not pulled in by that excellent Jim Rosloff cover of Keep on the Borderlands, right? The Errol Otis basic box, that colossal freet about to do horrible things to those three adventurers in the city of brass, all gorgeous stuff. And you know, it's simply wonderful that you know, you've taken the time to bring that in, because I think there are very well-meaning entries into the OSR, and it is, you know, what divides and defines them now, I think, is presentation at this point, right? Because everybody can get anything they want out of the OSR. Agree or disagree? I mean, whatever you're looking for, there's a slice of it out there, right?
Oh, completely. It's just up to your personal preference. And I think some things, well, at the end of the day, taste is political. And we all have our individual tastes, subject to where we entered the hobby and what we think is what we enjoy about mechanics and what we enjoy about art. Sometimes I look at some OSR games and I can see the vision, but the art doesn't align with the mechanics, or the mechanics doesn't align with the art. And for me, it's absolutely critical that the art reinforces the mechanics on the page. So that's something that's core to my understanding of how a game should function, especially something as complex as a role-playing game. So I spend a lot of time thinking about how the art on the text on a page reinforces the art on the opposite page. And so if you're looking at the art and you're looking at the text opposite, you should see a reference in there. It might be oblique, but it could be implicit, but it's there. And I think that's really important, that when you see that, it just all fits together. It gets you excited about playing the game, or somebody else excited about running a game. And then before you know it, you have enthusiasm at the table before you even start.
Yeah, exactly. You know, I feel like a good RPG's artwork or good RPG artwork should open the door. You know, it should open the door. And I think the fact, like, you know, we were talking about Darlene and Dave LaForce, and of course you've got artwork by Kenan James. We've had Kenan on the show before. Kenan's a phenomenal artist. I mean, he really
is.
He grabs it, just amazing stuff. So it was good to see the aesthetic and not just the aesthetic, but the backbone for it, you know, because again, I think there's an opposite side of the coin, and I want to hear your input on this. You're the guest, of course, where maybe there's projects, and you know, where I don't think we need to name any names, where it seems like it's all hat and very little cowboy, if you will. You know, it's like they so much focus on the aesthetic, and yet we got you know, we got nothing for nothing that we couldn't get elsewhere, you know, otherwise just a kind of a very you know, rule set. And that's just my skim through Dragon Slayer. That's not the vibe I'm getting, believe me. I'm not leading to an ambush question. But you know, what is your feeling on that, on I guess, to reinforce your thoughts on getting the art right?
Yeah, I think the for me, the best Dungeons and Dragons is low fantasy Dungeons and Dragons.
Mm-hmm.
So I have no interest in hero worship. I've got no interest in min-maxing. I've got no interest in any of that. I'm interested in grit over grandeur. I'm interested in
Sure.
what's happening on the street corners, in the brothels, in you know, in those sort of things. Like, that's, to me, the gritty human part of Dungeons and Dragons. And so I guess in a lot of ways I'm more Han Solo than I am Luke Skywalker, in that I like the moral ambiguity of early Dungeons and Dragons. And that doesn't mean that you can't do great things. It just means that, while it often aligns with your own selfish individual interest, kind of like
Sure.
Robert Howard's Conan. So
Sure.
those are some of the things that I think are important. If you look through the art of Dragon Slayer, you're going to see the street examples. So I've got I took the example of Emerkiel the Chaotic, and I thought, okay, well, that's a pretty interesting location. What else could have happened on that street? And so that became the inspiration for a new piece of art. Working with Darlene, who is kind of the queen of fantasy role-playing games, and she's been so gracious and just a wonderful person to work with. So my background, my parents are from the UK, and so I grew up with seeing standing stones and barrow mounds and things of that nature, and that's something that I thought I really wanted to include in Dragon Slayer. And so when you see the example of her full page art of an elf touching a unicorn in a stone circle, that was very purposeful, and also reinforces the text on the opposite page. So those are the kind of things that I think are important. I have very little interest in hero play. Now, if you become a hero in the course of your adventure, then that's great. But that's not necessarily the primary point of playing. So, you know, those are the things that I think are important. I want them reinforced in the art. I want them reinforced in the text. And I think that makes for fun play at the table. And it opens up all kinds of possibilities that we don't often see reflected in contemporary fantasy adventure streaming shows and movies. We do see it here and there, but not a lot. And I think it's a really undervalued area of fantasy adventure.
Sure. And now, you know, I think there's a fine line between gritty low fantasy and just wallowing in misery tourism. Everything is bad. Everyone is bad. You know, nothing's good. I guess I would call it the Game of Thrones aesthetic, where it seems like you know, Martin just wanted to twist every idea of hope and hopefulness, just gut it, just rip it inside out. You know, people who try to do good are idiots, and you know, they wind up buried head down in pig shit, and you know, we can swear we got a pretty good super chat. Thank you, Rusty. You filled up the swear tip jar. You fucking amazing man. But anyway, But I think there's a fine line you walk, agree or disagree as a creator, between getting. Am I? Did I lose on it? Okay. One moment. We have fun little issues with the audio sometimes. There we go.
You got it.
All right, there we are. So we're back. So what I was saying, I'm not sure where I lost you, but we were talking about gritty aesthetic versus misery tourism.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's an important, I think it's a super important line to tread as a creator, so that you don't, that it's not just the road, Cormac McCarthy's The Road, but with orcs.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I've got Mortborg over here if I want that. But is that is that something that you found was an issue when you were creating this? I mean, I think I understand your aesthetic. If I may be so bold, I think you're going for Fofford and Gray Mouser kind of stuff, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would say that's accurate. I think we don't need to speak in extremes. So just because you're saying low fantasy, that doesn't mean misery tourism. It doesn't mean high fantasy either. There's a sweet spot that's kind of been that was part of fantasy fiction that has kind of been forgotten a wee bit. And so I think I use the example of grit over grandeur. Let's make it human. There are human choices, and we're all fallible at the end of the day. Nobody's perfect. And sometimes we're put in these situations that are just dreadful. Like, if you're a good DM and one of your players is playing a paladin, then you want to put that paladin in a two-way go where the village is going to be destroyed by a giant and your castle and your queen is going to be attacked by the Black Knight. Pick the lesser of two evils. What are you going to do?
Right.
And
exactly.
But
let Frodo take the ring to Mordor, or take it to Gondor and save my kingdom.
Right. But these are the human things that we face, in the confines of our families and marriages and relationships and so on. And we can reflect them in role-playing games, and the gnashing of teeth and the wringing of hands is all part of it. And that makes a really compelling game. And so that's kind of the thing that I enjoy most. I think that I think players really kind of enjoy that stuff too. They get put in a moral quandary, and then they have to make some decisions, and I think that's good gaming.
Absolutely. And Jorge Uribe had a question for you. And by the way, guys, if you're out there, if you're watching, if you have any questions for Greg, any questions for me that you want me to ask Greg, just go ahead and pop them in chat. We will get to them. But Jorge had a couple of questions, but I want to get to this one because I think this is really pertinent to this. And this, he says, do you think the language used in OSR books should reinforce the aesthetics of the game?
100%. And it's such a great question. Thank you for asking it. So if you notice, if you go through Dragonslayer, I use a fairly, formal tone in the entire book, with the exception of the appendices. In the appendices, I use my personal voice. And I'm a bit of a piss taker, and I like sarcasm. And I think humor is a really big part of the game. It's a game at the end of the day, and we want to take it seriously. We want that gritty realism, but at the same time, we do want a little bit of mirth too. We're playing a game, we want to have fun. So I have I have an FAQ or a FAQ. I've got some other things in the appendices where I speak with my voice directly to the viewer. And part of it is, okay, so we've got this rule set, and there's some things you can do, and some classes, and some races, and so on, and spells, and monsters, and so on. But how do you survive? Like, what do you do? and I think some of that is really important. So, you know, the question is a really good one. So I think that you need to be able to know what you want to the point that you can distill it into as few words as possible and communicate it to another human being or an audience. And I tried to do that. And then the other side of it was I wanted to use the appendices to have a completely different tone, where I use a different language, a more casual tone with mirth and humor and sarcasm to communicate, well, how exactly do you play this game? Because, you know, if you grew up playing D&D and you're watching, say, your older brother or something like that, and you wanted to play at the big boy table, right? You could read the book, but that really didn't tell you how you played. You needed to be mentored into the game to how do you keep your character alive? When do you retreat? When do you rearm? When do you do these things? And so all that's part of the game that often are the implicit rules of role playing. And I wanted to try to make those a little bit more explicit in the appendices. So it's a great question, and thank you for asking it.
I think one of the advantages, at least of advanced Dungeons and Dragons, is, you know, the player's handbook lays it out, and I always come back to this when people get on to me about, you know, the constant, oh, you're always checking for wandering monsters, Bill. We can't fight them all. Three words in the back of the player's handbook: avoid unnecessary encounters.
100%.
You know.
Combat is for desperate men only. Never put yourself in a position where you're desperate.
Yes, exactly. I heard this, and I don't want to skate too close to real world ethos ever on this show, but I have heard this reference to law enforcement, and that is, if your gun starts to come out of the holster, things have gone absolutely wrong. Things have gone horribly wrong. At that point, that the last resort has come around, and either you or the other person or both of you have done something very wrong. And it's the same in D&D. You know, one of the great stories from the old days, you say you've been a fan of the show a long time. I don't know if you've ever heard this story that Tracy Lesh tells about the party getting a dragon's hoard with zero bloodshed, and it was because he asked if his character could try and mimic, with a little bit of ventriloquism, mimic the sound of a female dragon in heat. And I believe it was Skip Williams was DMing at the time, and he was like, fine, give me a die roll, and he rolled a 20 or something, whatever Skip was after. And so the dragon went romping off looking for its mate, and the party grabbed as much loot as they could and left. That is, you know, the as you say, the not desperate measure. That's the clever measure.
Oh, sure. If you can kill somebody with ventriloquism, you win D&D. I mean, it's just how it works.
Absolutely. You should
be feted by your friends, and your wife or spouse should take you to dinner. That's just one of those little check marks that you get in playing the game. But that's really it. It's like Sun Tzu's The Art of War. Everything you kind of really need to know about combat in D&D, you can understand by reading Sun Tzu's The Art of War.
Excellent. Everyone, put that on a post-it note and stick it in your Appendix N, or just scratch it into your copy of Dragonslayer.
Yeah.
If it's not already in your recommended reading. Speaking of recommended reading and Eastern themes, I've got to ask you this, because I did see his name mentioned. Do you have a monk in Dragonslayer because of Ty Beard?
So I do have a monk, and but
you do have I know you have the monk class, but
okay. So
go ahead.
As I look at AD&D as a huge fan, the kind of Shaolin monk seems odd to me, because if you think about it, the de facto setting for AD&D is the Anglo-Saxon Dark Age, That's kind of where we're at. And to me, that monk doesn't fit. So I wanted more of a Western monastic monk. And so that's how I set about thinking about the monk for Dragonslayer. I think it's a much better fit at the end of the day, and I say that with respect and humbly as a huge fan of AD&D. That I think it's just a better. It fits more neatly with the context and with the other classes to me.
Well, the only reason I bring it up is I've had Ty on the show a few times, and we've talked about OSR clones and everything. Ty's huge fan of AD&D as well as the OSR, and so the joke is that he has said that Osric is almost perfect, but it has a critical flaw in that it has no monk, and
Right.
he always takes a moment to mention that he likes Osric, except it had no monk. So when I saw when I was first reading the book and I saw his name in the special thanks, I was like, I wonder if that's why. I wonder if that's why Greg has a monk. Did Ty get to you?
Ty has always gotten to me, but Ty is one of the great people that I've met in the OSR. And speaking more broadly, the thing I treasure most about gaming and about designing and about thinking about games are the friendships, the close friendships that I have created through gaming, and Ty is definitely among them. There's a small handful of people that have enriched my life in ways that I can't repay, and Ty's definitely one of those people. I enjoy renewing those friendships every chance I get, and hearing what they think about gaming and where they're at and what's new and their opinion on things. And I take all those things to heart. So yes, Ty has been an influence, and I thank God for that.
Ty is good people, and I tell you what, Greg, if are you hitting EggCon this summer?
No, I don't think so, but I'll be at a bunch of conventions. I'll be at DaveCon and North Texas,
okay,
and Texoma as well, which is in its first year, and maybe one or two others. We'll see as things progress.
Excellent. Well, if we ever run into each other and you buy me a beer, I'll tell you how I met Ty. It's a funny story, and I don't want to detract to get onto it, but we do have another question. We do have another question here from Jorge, and he asks this banger: how compatible is Dragonslayer with original adventures for Basic Expert and First Edition? I've got a thought on this, but I'm going to let you answer.
Well, to me, they're completely frontwards and backwards compatible. So if you wanted to run an AD&D adventure with Dragonslayer, you could do that. If you wanted to use the AD&D rule books and run a Dragonslayer adventure, you could do that too. And that was purposeful. So, and part of it, I'll just be honest, it's completely self-interested. Like you, I have a huge archive. I have pretty much everything ever printed for Advanced BX and Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, and that's the best. Those are my I'm a professional historian, and so those are my primary sources. So those are the things. If I'm unsure about how to address an issue, if I'm thinking about design or an approach, the TSR guys have run into everything literally. So what I try to do is I try to go back to those things, and then I say to myself, okay, well, did I like how they address the problem, and how would I address it differently or similarly? And that's a big factor in how I think about gaming. And quite honestly, I'm not interested in any version of WotC D&D. It doesn't do anything for me at all. It's not Gygax's vision as far as I'm concerned. And I'm trying to do things that reinforce his legacy, his game. And so if I can present a game that has an artistic appeal, a creative appeal, a mechanical appeal, and you can play it 1-to-1 with the great, terrific AD&D adventures, then that was my goal as I set out.
Excellent. So that actually dovetails nicely with this question next up from Mox Owl. Says, what's next for Dragon Slayer?
So I created a small convention adventure called Crypt of the Barrow Dweller for North Texas RPG Con last year. I'll have another adventure coming forward this year, module style, for it'll be available at DaveCon and also at North Texas. It's called Beacon on the Barrowmore, which if anybody doesn't know, all the mega dungeons I've created, Barrow Maze, Archaea, Highfell, and Dwerodeep all are situated in my home campaign. And then these smaller modules are just adding value to that setting and the campaign setting, and a huge 36 by 36 inch full color poster map will be available at the end of this year or starting next.
Oh, that's excellent. So there you go, Mox Owl. That's what's next.
Yeah, so there's lots coming down the pipe, and just to add to that, Bill, if you look at the Dragon Slayer license, the back, it's very friendly. So if people have an interest, they want to make an adventure or they want to make a supplement of some kind, it's very friendly to that. And that's part of the point. I wanted to create Dragon Slayer, and then I wanted to set it free so that if people have a creative impulse and they want to create something, and it reinforces all the things we're talking about here in terms of the origins of the hobby and having respect for the past and respect for creators, then definitely do that. I mean, I'd love to see it personally, and people have done that. And I run each spring, usually in April, I run a one-page dungeon design contest in the Dragon Slayer Facebook group, and everyone's welcome to contribute. So it's been hotly contested the last couple of years, and I'm excited to see what people will come up with this spring.
Well, let me ask you about that contest a little bit, and then we can kind of get back to another question that I had for you. But with regard to those, what is the legal boilerplate on those for anyone who might be interested? Do those become your property for republishing? Do you just say, hey, this is the best one, and enjoy it, thank you, or how does that go?
Yeah, so it's 100%. It's just to inspire creativity, and what I do is I offer books as a prize, and the respect of your friends and colleagues in the group. So if you want to take your adventure and you want to submit it to a magazine like Fight On, which I'm a big supporter of, or you just want to not do anything with it, or you want to revise it and publish it and make a couple bucks, it's completely up to you. It's completely yours. I want to get people playing the game that we love. I want people thinking about how to design. I want people thinking about, well, what creative juices could I bring to something? But it's completely your own. I'm just trying to spur creativity in the community and get people thinking and designing and having fun.
Because I think there's I would dare say there's a fair few people in the industry, as odd as it seems to say that, or it feels to refer to what I think of as a hobby as an industry, but there we go. I think there's a fair few people who feel a little snake bitten by, oh yeah, enter the contest. By the way, everything you write is now ours.
I'm not Wizards of the Coast. I'm not like that at all.
Cool.
Ask around. I'm a straight shooter. I just love the game, and I'm just trying to give back in a way that's meaningful, that other people can enjoy. And for example, if you wanted to, you're running a game on Friday night or whatever, and you need a one-page dungeon, you can go to the group and you could download one and just go ahead and play it. And I think playing that's the most respect you could ever give a designer, is to say, of all the things out there that we could possibly do, we're choosing to play your game. And that's a very humbling, it's a very gratifying and a very humbling experience. And I don't take it lightly. And I don't think the people that have contributed to the design contest in the past would take it lightly either. They're good people, and we all share the same values about gaming and what it's meant to our lives, and that we want to inspire other people.
Exactly. And I was telling, we had Todd Blackwell on last week. He was talking about just we were talking about drop ship and all the cool stuff DM Blackwell that they've got going on. And I said, you know what, we gamed together at Page, which I don't know if you've gotten up there to Page. It's a pretty good con. If you can stand the cold. I can't, but it was still a good con. I told him about Horde Wars. I said, you know what? I would play this. And as a guy who's written things, as a guy who gets that, I think you're 100% right. Telling someone who writes, whether it's a whole game system or even just adventures like I do, saying, yeah, I would play this, and meaning it, guys out there in the audience, that is the biggest just dopamine release button you can hit for guys like us, is to say, yeah, I'd play this. I would absolutely play this. And so, yeah, Greg's not lying when he says saying you would play this is peak. It is absolutely peak. And I want to get this one more question from Mox Owl, but I do want to mention real quick, guys, 49 folks watching, 22 updates. If you could give me a thumbs up out there in TV land, I would appreciate that. But let's go over to, again, this is Mox asking another question. Who's your dream team of TTRPG designers? Who would you have on that dream team?
Mm-hmm. Well, I definitely have a couple names. If there are people I would like to work with, so I've worked with Ken and James. I mean, so in terms of taking my ideas and realizing them into art on the page, he is a treasure, an absolute treasure, and he's it as far as I think OSR artists, and I'm very happy to have a relationship with him and to work with him as often as I do, and I'm very thankful for him. I'm very good friends with Jeff Talanian. He's a person that I enjoy a lot. I haven't worked with him yet, but I have such respect for him. So, I know that our hearts are both in the right place. And I would say generally beyond that, I want to work with people who do not put politics first. I want people who want to put gaming first, and who want to put who want to put the love of the hobby first. And those are the people that I would like to work with. And I'm really honestly happy to work with anybody that wants to has that at the forefront of their mind, that we want to make great games, whether it's in design, whether it's in art, whether it's in whatever aspect it may be. And those are the people that I enjoy most. And I know that our hearts are in the right place, and we're going to make a great game because we're putting that first. So that's kind of how I would answer that question.
For sure, definitely, and you're absolutely right. Jeff is good people. I've known Jeff, good Lord, almost 20 years now, maybe a little bit more. And you know what they say, it ain't the years, it ain't the years, it smiles. K. Hershey Jr. says, I've been running Dragonslayer on Fridays at my FLGS. Most veteran 5e players and a completely new person to the hobby. Everyone has been having a blast. Well, there you go.
Well, that's great. If we're converting 5e players to the true religion, then we're doing the right thing.
Absolutely. And you know what I say this about 5e, about Shadow Dark, basically about anything. If that path brings you to advanced D&D, to original D&D, to basic D&D, to something like Dragonslayer, if that's what brings you here, if that's what gets you at the table, then that I don't, I'm not one of those, oh, you've played 4E and liked it, you're unclean. No, I mean, oh, you played 4E, cool. This is first edition, or this is Dragonslayer, or this is Horde Wars, or this is whatever. Sit down and try this. And it can be an absolute wet blanket to pull that edition warrior, grognardier than thou attitude. And it's nice to see that that 5e vets are coming in and playing Dragonslayer and having a lot of fun with it. So
that's true. And it's important that we remind ourselves, for those of us who have been in the hobby as long as we have, as far as I'm concerned, Wizards of the Coast is the reason why we have edition wars. They're the ones that have made very significant changes to the lexicon, to the vernacular, to the mechanics. And they've done so to...
Very much so.
Yeah, and so they're the ones to blame. The DNA of TSR D&D is consistent across its decades, and that consistency is what I'm after. When you start changing what hit dice means to one edition versus another, when you start playing with the shared lexicon, you're encouraging conflict. And I've expressed this to people at Wizards of the Coast over the years, and of course, no one listens. But it's just, you have to, any community, whether you think as a society or a subculture, you have to have a shared lexicon. When you bugger with the lexicon, you are probably going to create conflict. And that's just the reality of the situation as I see it.
It's, I definitely think you're hitting on something there. I definitely think you're right. I remember, and I feel like we're kind of on the same sheet of music. I won't belabor the point here, but when you come in with such a sweeping change as you got in 4th edition, where they were saying, oh, that's a striker, that's a controller, that's a commander, that's a this, that's a that. These things are not now spells, cantrips, and abilities. They're AE, D, or U category. And I really think it created more strife than it needed to have had. Mm-hmm. And it made what at the core might have been a fine D&D, even if it isn't your favorite D&D, into something that was poison to people. Mm-hmm. And but to circle back to what you said, I think you're right. If we go back to winter of 2023, what was happening 2 years ago right now? Wizards of the Coast was on fire. They could not do a single thing correct. Everyone from the people on Critical Role all the way down to guys like me and everybody in between, you, I'm sure, we were shoulder to shoulder. We said, look, it doesn't matter, if you've got somebody who's trying to create their own OSR stuff, or you've got somebody who's trying to do third-party press for the latest edition, you have screwed us all. Mm-hmm. You have negatively impacted all of us. And edition just went out the door. It didn't matter. We all stood in a line and faced Wizards of the Coast, and we said, no, we pushed back. We voted with our dollars, and they had to listen. But to address your point, yes, it suits them better. Edition wars suit them.
Yeah.
Having us at each other's throats over, honestly, the way a person over here pretends to be an elf on graph paper versus the way I do it is the most ridiculous thing in the world. And I think the only correct thing that Wizards of the Coast has done in the past decade and a half was bringing back the flood of classic TTRPG material to print on demand and drive through. So when people say, man, I really wish I could play first edition, I'm like, go play. You can buy the rules right now. Get a player's a monster manual, a dungeon master's guide, and some modules, and pick it up and start playing. Or if you don't want to give money to people who hate you, go get something like Dragonslayer.
That's right. I think what's underlying your point is that it's important to acknowledge that a company like Wizards of the Coast, they're run by cultural Marxists. And the purpose of cultural Marxism is to create dissent and dissonance and to disrupt shared narratives. Dungeons and Dragons is a shared narrative. And to the purpose is to disrupt that. And we've seen it, as you pointed out, it was on fire a couple of years ago. It's still on fire now. And so there are modernists, these are the cultural Marxists. There are anti-modernists, people like us that believe that a classic game was created, that there's value in it, and that we're trying to forward those values and Gygax's legacy. And that's kind of where I fall. And so that's how I see it.
Sure. Yeah. And, you know, I feel like, again, to go back to polemic, you know, we were, regardless of where you were coming from, we were united, and it suited them for us to not be united. And, and
that's correct.
You know, you have this sad situation now where people have said, well, you pick sides and so on. Like there's one side, and it's the TTRPG side.
That's right.
We should all be on the same side.
That's
But to get back to the game, there's a book here. I've been kind of picking at this like Gollum clawing at Frodo's feet here, because you sent me 2 books, and God bless you for that. That was, like I said, a lovely Christmas gift. We have here the and I'm going to zoom in real quick. I'm just going to do this real quick. We have the Mega Dungeon Monster Manual. Tell us about this slim little volume here. And I have looked through it, but again, that's for the folks at home who maybe are not fully up to speed on all this stuff. Tell us about the Mega Dungeon Monster Manual.
Sure. Well, I've created 4 Mega Dungeon adventures, and what people were saying to me in the groups was that it would be really nice to have all the monsters from the monster sections of each of the Mega Dungeons in one book to be easy to find. So that's why the Mega Dungeon Monster Manual came about, and it was a real joy to do, and to see all the monsters housed in one volume was fun. And it's no more complex than that. But if you if you're running an AD&D game or a 2nd edition game or BX game, and you're just looking for some additional monsters or an alternative take on some monsters, then that might be of interest to you. So all the monsters have illustrations, and I've been very fortunate over the years. I've worked with the late Jim Holloway. I've worked with Errol Lotus. I've worked with Jeff Easley. I've worked with Darlene. I've worked with Diesel. I've worked with all these terrific artists, and they've all contributed to the material, and that's very meaningful for me and very important. And it's been a real joy. So creating these books is a real labor of love, Bill. I have to be honest about it. It's something that it makes my days fun to start. and fun to think about, and fun to plan ways to for DMs to be able to kill off their their characters in devious ways. So that's kind of that's part of the the humor. And I do write my material with humor. It's self-reflexive. I mean, we are playing a game at the end of the day, and so some of the humor is implicit. Some of it's a little bit more explicit, but you'll read that in the Mega Dungeon Monster Manual, and you'll read it in my adventures as well.
Excellent. Excellent. So let's see. FM, I'm just going to call you FM here. FM with this question, and from left field says, "Hello from Brazil. What's the longest RPG session you've ever played in one stretch? Hours? Days?"
Oh, geez. I played, probably 20 hours of Dwero Deep, and it was terrific. It was really fun. It was exhausting, but that was probably one of the, in terms of recent past. I played with some terrific friends in Austin and Austin, Texas, and we what we did was we brought up the Dwero Deep hex map on a LCD TV table, and then put a fog of war on it, so that I could, as we went we were like subterranean hex crawling. So if you've ever played the Drow series and Descent into the Depths and stuff like that, and you understand the logic of subterranean hex crawling as expressed in those modules, then Dwero Deep will make perfect sense to you, and that was part of the point. So we did that, and then when it came to zooming in for a combat in a subterranean tunnel or into a dungeon, we could do that as well. It was really super cool. We put the miniatures right on the LCD table, and that was super fun. So I'm not known for my marathon gaming sessions, but that was definitely one of the ones from the recent past I would point to. And hello to you all the way from Brazil.
Well, all right. Thank you very much there for the for the question, FM. Let's see. Oh, I need to zoom back out, so I'm not leaning in with my giant dome there. So we were talking a little bit about cons. You're going to do North Texas. You've got a few others coming up. As far as promoting Dragonslayer on the convention scene, do you have like a circle of cons that you like to hit or that you plan to hit, or are you just, when you say go to cons, you're just going to go, you're going to game, you're going to have a good time of it?
Well, I try to go to the conventions that reaffirm my values and that put gaming first. So that's historically kind of what I've done. I've been going to North Texas RPG Con for well over a decade now, and that's kind of ground zero for the OSR as far as gaming is concerned. And I just love going to Texas. I think I was a Texan in a former life, so I love the people there. I love the look in the eye and the handshake agreement that you get from people there. It's how I was raised, and it resonates with me. And I really appreciate all the friendships that I've developed from Austin to Lubbock and Dallas in between. They're very, very meaningful to me, and I appreciate all of you. And in addition to that, I've gone to, last year I was at T-Fest in Austin, which was the first year for that convention. I also, as I mentioned, DaveCon, I was in Minneapolis. I was also at ArnCon in October, also in Minneapolis. And so, I think I did 7 guest appearances in 2025. I've got, I think, 4 or 5 planned so far this year, and in 2026. And if you have an opportunity to go to any of these, I'd be happy to see you there and have a conversation. I love talking about old school games and sharing opinions and having a discussion about things gaming related.
That's wonderful, man. That is awesome. And you know, how awesome for you to be that in demand. That is really, really cool. So let's see. I got a couple messages pop up here. Okay, I just didn't want to miss a question there. If anyone had any questions,
Sure. Just as you're looking for anything there, if people are unaware, so my mega dungeons are they're both they're all tentpole campaigns, but for example, they're modular as well. So if you wanted to, you could take some individual barrel mounds from Barrel Maze, or you could take towers from Wizard Towers from Highfell, or you could take caves from Archaea, or whatever it may be, and you could sprinkle them into a hex crawl, and you could run it like that with very little change. So, you know, I do think in modular ways, but I also think in kind of the overall approach, so that everything's coherent within its own tentpole campaign.
Excellent. Mox Owl with another question. Have you been to GaryCon?
Yes. So I went to GaryCon, I think 3 years in a row, up to 2018 or 2019. And just to be very forward with you, that's kind of when, you know, Wizards of the Coast seemed to be taking over GaryCon from an old school convention, trying to make it their own. And then I can recall the last time I was there, a few of us were standing around saying, what is this now? And I haven't been back since. That doesn't mean I wouldn't go. It just means that when I started going, it was one type of convention. And then by the time I, you know, initially pre-COVID, it just seemed to be something else. So, and that's okay. But you know, I would really love to be able to go to a convention in Lake Geneva, Wisconsin yearly, because
go to EggCon. It's in the summer. It's beautiful.
I know. Well, hey, if you know, maybe harangue the folks in charge, and they'll invite me. I'd certainly go.
You know, I'm going to be up there in July. I consider Heidi and Eric harangued at the very least. I will.
All right. Well, you know, I'd be happy to go, and I enjoy. You know, it's ground zero for our hobby, and so that's always a nice visit. I was very fortunate when I did go to GaryCon. Paul Stormberg invited me to go to the old Gygax house and to go to the basement, and that was, you know, age 12 Greg was very super excited about that, and I'm very fortunate to have had that opportunity and grateful.
I have been to Lake Geneva 6 times, and that sucker has never shown me the Gygax basement. Paul, if you're out there watching this, you're at I'll see you in July. You better wear a monocle and a fake mustache, man.
Yeah, it was really great. It was really terrific, and I enjoyed the times I went to GaryCon. To be honest, it was good fun.
Yes. You know, GaryCon to me, and the emphasis here is to me. GaryCon to me is the upper end limit on how big of a con I want to go to. It's got a nice big dealer area that you can spend a couple of days shopping at. It's got a ton of games, a lot of people there, but it's not like Gen Con, which is literally like 2/3 the population of the Metro Orlando area shows up and moves into Indianapolis for 5 days. That's like, are you even at a con at that point, right? You know?
Yeah, well, I can't say enough good things about North Texas. It's exactly the right size. The people are terrific. The games are amazing. How they run things is top notch. And so, you know, if folks are, you know, considering, if you're on the edge about going to a convention, certainly consider going to North Texas and Dallas.
Excellent. Excellent. And one thing I want to answer a question here, which I think this was just kind of thrown out generically from Bolter Thrower. Says, how do I start my own convention? Let me tell you step one, Bolter Thrower, if I may, and Greg, I want you to chime on this. But step one, be prepared to lose your ass financially. Now, Greg, would you like to add anything?
Well, I haven't run a convention myself, but I've certainly spoken to the people that have. And I mean, you can, if you break even, you're doing well. And, you know, so start with a groundswell, you know, all your local gaming stores, get them on board, you know, communicate broadly and widely, and then speak to the people who have experience running conventions. So, you know, that would be, I'd reach out to those people as starters. And you know what, people that run conventions, they're part of the hobby. They you know, are happy to hear a new convention might be started, particularly, you know, if it's in relation to the kinds of gaming that we enjoy, and they'll help you. They're kind, good people, and you know, like just like in whether, you know, making rule sets or modules or conventions, a rising tide lifts all the boats. And you know, if you're doing well, and somebody else can do well, that means you'll do better, and so will they on a long enough timeline.
And I am absolutely on the same sheet of music as Greg is. A rising tide does lift all boats. You know, it's why I say I'm not in competition with other YouTubers, particularly when it comes to TTRPG stuff of the old school variety. You know, me, Dungeon Minister, and there's just so many others out there. That it does, like, I'm not gonna drag those guys down and say no, just pay attention on my channel. It's not like when we were kids growing up and you had, you know, if you didn't watch it on TV that night, you never got to see it again, right? You know, had to fight over who's going to turn the dial. There's plenty of bandwidth for all.
Oh, there is, and you know, you know, you don't need to empire build to the detriment of the other empires. And that's where some people lose perspective. If you just do your thing, you're only ever in competition with yourself, whether it's making a module or a rule set or a convention, and just do the best. You know, try to set the bar a little bit further ahead than where you set the bar last year, or on the last book, or on the last adventure, and focus on you. And if you do that, you're going to be successful in a long enough timeline. And I, you know, I think that's just good advice for everyone.
Just so. I think you're absolutely right. Got another question from Jorge here, and he says, forever DM, or do you get to play? If so, what?
I actually don't get to play very often because, so, you know, I spend most of my days thinking about RPG design, thinking about new adventures, and or doing the logistics around those things. So I don't get to play very often, but when I do, I certainly enjoy it. I played in a terrific Halloween zombie game, which I don't do very often. I'm very much I guess you'd say a vanilla fantasy adventure man. That's kind of, I think that's where the majority of people play. And that might not be super exciting for some designers and whatnot that spend their days thinking about fantasy role-playing games. But if you're, you know, one of those folks that you just show up to your twice a month game, you just want to know that magic missile's magic missile. You want to know that a longsword does 1d8. You want to know that, you know, those things. So I think that I try to design for those people, the people that have busy lives. They can't read a lot of rule changes. They want to show up to the game and they want to know that it's consistent Gygaxian D&D, and that's what I'm trying to do. But I do enjoy a game every now and again when I get the opportunity, and I'm happy to yeah, I've played in a couple of celebrity games that are fun. I've also I do really enjoy a couple board games like the Leading Edge Aliens game. So I'm not much of a sci-fi gamer, but you put me in front of the Leading Edge Aliens game and it's on. I'm ready to go. That's one thing I really, really enjoy. And I created a whole kind of board for myself and and paint it all up, and it's really, really fun to play. So I do enjoy those kind of things.
So I've got to ask you then. I mean, as soon as you start talking about elaborate terrain for Aliens, the leading edge board game there, surely you must have run into Alan Grohe, right? Grodog?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. I knew it. As soon as you started talking Aliens, I was like, hey, I bet. You've got that excellent Lee Brimacombe Wood Aliens Colonial Marines technical manual, right?
Yeah. Well, so what's really funny about that is that one of my best friends gave me a copy of the leading edge Aliens game. And this is back 16 years ago or so. And then I went to, so I'm like, oh, this is great. But then I put it on my shelf. I got busy. I went to North Texas for the first time, and I played in Alan Grohe's Aliens game. And I'm like, this is amazing. And it's on my shelf at home. What am I doing? So I went home from North Texas, and I immediately dove into that thing. And I'm like, okay, now I have to make my own board because this is going to be great. And that's exactly what I did. And it's like one of my go-to games. You can play in about 45 minutes, and it's got like the tactical part of it, which is super cool. The miniature part, which is super cool. It's highly lethal, which we like in our 80s style, games. And it hits all the right notes, and you put on the Alien soundtrack in the background, and you're good to go.
Yeah, it's amazing stuff. And I get much the same vibe. I unfortunately have not gotten to play in Alan's Aliens games. I would love to one day, but I get a lot of that itch scratched from Space Hulk back when Games Workshop hadn't completely turned into just what they are now. They were still publishing Space Hulk, and I quite like it. It's the same aesthetic, or not the same aesthetic, but the same vibe, the same feel. And I'll follow that up with this. And if you don't believe me, I'll send you the link after the stream. There is a fellow who has actually built a motion tracker. I don't mean he's built a gadget that beeps. I mean, he has wired together a device that has hobby millimeter wave radar sensors built into the box, and it works. It is an actual Aliens motion tracker. It's the craziest thing.
There's an app that can do that too. So one of my friends, Kelly, he runs a really terrific Aliens game, and he had the app, and it makes the pulsing sensation of the motion tracker, and it's just kind of a nice little fun thing you can do at the table as a bit of a joke and to immerse people more in the game, and it's super fun. And so, Kelly, I poached that from you. There you go.
Yeah. So, but this guy, he's if anybody wants to look this up, it's all one word: Rob Smith Dev on YouTube. And he has built a real motion tracker that uses millimeter wave radar to look through walls, the ceiling, and everything else, and will actually track people. And it does it displays on a screen built into the gadget. Anyway, to get back to more important things. Dave Mills 7717 says, are you going to finish the Haunted Tower game you were running on YouTube recently?
Yes, that's the plan. I've had to postpone it a couple times, which is completely my fault, not the player's fault, but we'll get to that probably in mid-March. So, and then that adventure will be available at Dave Con in North Texas and a couple other conventions this summer if you're interested.
All righty. Well, there you go. That's I hope that answers your question, Dave.
And it's a super, just to jump in there, Bill, it's a super great group of people that I play with in that game. So there are people from across my gaming life, all the way back to the early 90s and to to the present day, folks on Diversity and Dragons and other places, and people I've met at conventions, and Americans and Canadians, and a whole bunch of really great people. And I'm grateful to know them all. And I'm grateful that they were willing to play in my game. And they also play tested Crypt of the Barrow Dweller a couple of years ago. So I'm very happy and grateful to have them in my life.
Excellent, excellent, man. That's wonderful. So I'm going to ask you this question. Do you have, like, in your home table, or maybe do you have in mind for the future a Dragonslayer Hawk or Gray Dragonslayer campaign setting, something that you would like to do someday?
Yeah. So one of the things I'm working on right now is the campaign setting, which is based on the outdoor survival map.
Okay.
So I can give you a little preview if you like.
Sure.
So it's been done for many years, and this is kind of what the full color map looks like. It's quite large, but I'll give you the general idea.
Wow. So, okay, let me make you the guy here. Let me see if I can.
If you look in the that center area right there, that's kind of where Barrow Maze is located.
Okay, yeah, I can just make that out. Yeah.
Yep. And so anyways, again, 36 inches by 36 inches, and it goes a long way. And this is the map in which my home campaign is located. All the mega dungeons are located here. It's called the Northern Reaches. And
okay.
So I'm working on the campaign setting right now, filling out my DM notes and doing all the things that are part and parcel with that. And I've been fortunate. There was Ed Greenwood held a writer's workshop about a year and a half
nice.
ago. And he lives not a few hours away, but I was fortunate to go to the writer's workshop. And so I asked him a lot of questions about his Forgotten Realms gray box that I wouldn't have the opportunity to ask otherwise. And that was very helpful in thinking about wrapping my mind around my own campaign setting, how I wanted to write it up, and how I want it to function.
Man, that's wonderful to get a chance to talk to Ed Greenwood. That is that's pretty stellar. That's pretty stellar. So now that we've seen that there's a campaign setting in the pipeline, I hate to even ask you this. Is there a time you'd like to have this out? Let me ask you that rather than, well, when's it going to be ready? Is there a time that you would like to have this out?
Well, the plan initially was the spring of 26, but I'm probably looking at late fall or the last quarter of 26 at this point, potentially early 27. But I make headway on it every day. And I've also had another project I've been deeply involved with regard to Barrow Maze, and I can't really say much about it at the moment, but it's going to be very exciting, and that will hopefully I'll have news on that by the end of 26. So my plan for the campaign setting was delayed a bit by this other development, but at the end of the day, I think if you love old school gaming and you love the gritty aesthetic that I'm kind of known for, and the kind of play style that's consistent with OSR gameplay, then I think you'll be pretty happy both with the campaign setting and with this other news that'll come forward later in 26 or early 27.
Excellent, excellent. That is wonderful. And I mean, something like a campaign setting, that's not a let me just jot off a few adventure ideas. I mean, you've got this beautiful map. You have a world to breathe life into. So yeah, I mean, I think you can pace yourself, particularly when you're talking about spring of 26. That's like 3 weeks away. So
But I've been working on this, pecking away at it for some time. As soon as Dragonslayer came out, I started working how I want the campaign setting to function. And I'm a cultural historian by trade. So my desire to have the depth of engagement, both with the setting and the politics and the cultural history and all of it is within my wheelhouse. That's kind of what I enjoy and what I love. So I'm taking my time with it, and I want it to be right when it comes forward. And I know the map is right. That's been done for years, and it's plastered on my dining room wall. So I look at it every single day, and I find new things that inspire me, or from play in the campaign setting that I want to develop or think about. And Ken and James has a whole huge brief in terms of art that I want for the campaign setting as well. So he's busy, and it takes time. When you have the ideas and then you task the artists, that takes some time. And then you start working on the edits, and then you start laying it out, and then you need to fill in your spot illustrations and do things like that. It's a process, but it snowballs. It picks up speed and inertia as you move along, and before you know it, you're getting close. And when that time comes, I'll be sure to let you know, and it should be super exciting.
Excellent. So is that just something that like you're gonna wrap up and do and just get out there, or is it you're gonna go like a crowdfunding route? How is that gonna progress, or have you just not decided?
It'll probably be crowdfunded, but the thing is, I've been humming and hawing on whether I want the map to be on acrylic or whether I want it to be on a poster style map. And that's something I've been iterating. That's part of it. And I've never really done that before with the mega dungeons I've done. So doing campaign settings is very different from a writing standpoint and authorial standpoint. So I've been working my way through it, iterating, and I'm content with where things are going relative to thinking about 2026.
Right on. Now let me see here. Just want to make sure that I'm not missing anyone's questions, so I'm kind of scrolling back through here. Tend to let my mouth get
the map was very much inspired by aspects of Darlene's Greyhawk map, and
oh sure. I mean, we that's something as creators you can't not let that into your into your DNA. That's part of the common language.
It is.
But let's see. So here's a question for you. And I personally, I think this is always a sticking point for me when it comes to campaign settings. I want a campaign setting. When you say campaign setting to me, my brain immediately clicks to World of Greyhawk. It's open. It's a sandbox. It is a complete. It's a blank slate. Here's some kingdoms. Here's some capitals. Here's the rulers of those kingdoms. Here's a little bit of history. What happens next? That's entirely up to you. We haven't detailed Elminster's shoe closet. We haven't told you, the airspeed velocity of all the metallic dragons in Dragonlance, that sort of thing.
Laden or unladen?
Laden, because Dragonlance, you know, they're riding on the back with the saddles and such. So what do you think makes then the best campaign setting? Something that's just completely tabula rasa. You sit down, you make it entirely your own, like a World of Greyhawk setting, or something that's more feature rich, where it's like, you know, Elminster went over here and did this. This city is famous for that. These people live in it. Here are all their stats. They did this, 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 and this, and so on and etc.
I think being a minimalist but evocative is where the gray box was successful. So you don't need absolutely everything explained. You can give the theme notes, but the offbeats and the accent notes can be up to the individual DM. I think if you take an area like a campaign setting, what I've done is I've divided the map into 6 kingdoms, and each something different is happening in each kingdom. Each of the so I've done 4 mega dungeons of a 6 mega dungeon project, and the last 2 are situated in the last 2 sections of the map. So each kingdom is different. They're interconnected by roads and by alliances and things of that nature, but at the end of the day, they stand alone. And each of these little regions is reinforced in each of the mega dungeon books that will all then come together in the campaign setting. So you need to be evocative enough to inspire adventure and to call to adventure, but not overly detailed as to crush creativity. And that's the balance that you have to walk to write a good campaign setting, I think.
Sure. You don't want your players out there on the campaign trail going, wait a minute, there's railroads in every direction here.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I do draw a lot from Tolkien. I mean, how can you not? And he's the kind of font from which it all flows. And so there are foundational items from Middle Earth that are core. I guess you'd call them ontological from an academic perspective. They're core to what I believe to be true about fantasy campaign settings, and I think a lot of your viewers would think the same way. And when the campaign setting comes out, I'm always welcome to hear from folks about what I did right and perhaps what I did wrong, and have a discussion about those things. So I think what the gray box did well for Forgotten Realms was it had areas that were more defined than others, but it also sprinkled in a couple other things that weren't really defined at all, that were kind of like loose threads. And I think those are important. And what I want to do over time is at the kind of behest of my friends is to write some smaller adventures that fill in, that can be parachuted into the map in place names that already exist, and that can add a little additional flair. So the mega dungeons add to the campaign setting back to the mega dungeons, the smaller modules to the campaign setting and to the mega dungeons, and everything fits as a unique whole altogether.
Excellent. We have a question from Mox Owl. It's popping up on YouTube, not on StreamYard yet, but I'm gonna ask this because we are getting on in the evening here. But he asks, would you do a boxed set?
I consider it, but box sets make sense when you're a mid-size or larger company. They don't make as much sense when you're a one-man show. So I think oh, sorry, go ahead.
No. You go ahead.
The plan for me is to have a book alongside a map. Now the map is ginormous. Well, as soon as you move outside of 24 by 17, you're in a ginormous pain in the butt for production and for distribution. So, but having said that, I think that it's worth it. I want a big kick-ass 36 by 36 inch full color poster map, which is the one I just showed you. It's glorious when you take a look at it. And what happens, there'll be the version that's hexed with place names. There'll be a version that is hexed with no place names. And there'll be a version with no hexes and no place names. So if you want to use it, you want to take my map and you want to use it and make your own thing, you can do that. If you want a player's version with just the hexes, you can do that. And then you've got the DM version with the hexes and the place names. So I'm trying to provide as much value as I possibly can for just subject to how you like to run your game at home.
Excellent. Excellent. No, I was going to say, just, with regard to box sets and expense, I believe it was Mark Miller. I think it was Mark. It may not have been Mark, but I was talking to one of the GDW guys about the possibility of a Twilight 2000 revival. Like, could you guys do a reprint set of that great Twilight 2000 first edition box? And he was very very blunt when he stated flat out, he's like, yeah, sure, just go ahead and lend me the $17,000 it'll start or it'll take just to get started. So yeah, box sets, they're kind of boutique items. It surprises people that it's actually just easier to print a hardback book than it is to get a box set done.
Sure is, yeah.
So, I guess we could bring this sucker in for a landing. Is there anything else? Anything we didn't cover? Any teasers, any spoilers, anything going forward, anything you'd like to say? You can have a talking stick as we wrap up.
Just that I'm so thankful that you've had me on your show, and I've been a great admirer of your show and your DMing style. As I said at the outset, I think that it's a great service to the community, and I really appreciate everyone tuning in tonight and having a listen. And just if you have any interest in any of the things I do, there's a Barrow Maze Facebook group and a Dragonslayer Facebook group, and I also moderate the OSR group on Facebook. So if you just want to contribute, or you want to just see what other people are doing, or if you paint miniatures or whatever your bag is in role-playing games, there's room for you. And I just appreciate everyone, and I appreciate the hobby very much.
Thank you. And let me just say in closing, before we direct you back into the green room, I will make a better thumbnail. I'm sorry, I was in haste.
That's okay.
I will use a much better picture. Greg, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Thank you for the lovely books. We're definitely having you back on. I would definitely love to have you back on again, maybe end of convention season. We can swap convention war stories or something like that.
That would be terrific. I'd be happy to do that, and it's been such a joy, and thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for being here, Greg. Please help yourself to some baklava and scotch in the green room. I'm going to put these kids to bed here. Everybody, thank you for tuning in tonight to the Delver's Dungeon. It was a gas having you guys here. Greg Gillespie, what a class act, everybody. Go buy Dragonslayer. Go check it out. Keep an eye on the cool stuff that he's got coming. I want to say an extra big, extra special thank you to Dagger for that incredible super chat, brother. You're helping keep the lights on around here. But as for me and myself, well, I'm going to go ahead and let you guys go this evening. And the one thing, I forgot to ask is, does almost slipped up. Does Dragonslayer have owl bears. Peace. Good night. God bless. Love you all.
Have you seen my owl bear? Here's to all the weirdos everywhere in the woods and in the air. Have you seen my owl bear? Should I shave off all my hair? Bobs are all around. Some live in tunnels underground. Some are fat, some are rich, some are sleeping in a ditch. Can you ride a crooked horse without a saddle way off course? Naked as a toad all the way to Smoky Joe's. Have you seen the little creep driving fast in his little green Jeep? He smells like fish and brandy, but his rotten teeth look dandy. Take me to the show, I don't care if fast or slow. From action flicks to dancing dicks, just take me to the show.